probably 30x your Spotify earnings. 30x in 12 months. We see inflation destroy every industry. What Fiat does, it's the death of rock and roll, and it's the death of anti-establishment rhetoric. This way we can have artists earn real money and really give a big middle finger up to the establishment. I eat better, I sleep more, I have more free time to be able to help people. I think someone accepting Bitcoin for their produce, whether it be a farmer with their beef, whether it be the local florist, love is going to go into what they produce, because their passion becomes meaningful. When your incentive and passion collide, amazing things happen.
Bitcoin is incentivizing the artist to be an artist again and not being distracted with all the other things.
Did you check out any of Longy's music? I mean, we've been doing a lot of stuff in the value for value verse, the value verse they call it, decentralized music. You know, with Fountain.
Fountain is
Wav
cool.
Lake. Have you heard of all these things?
Oh yeah, Fountain. I wasn't aware that there's music also. I found interesting.
So basically, Longy's an old friend of mine. I introduced him to like Wav Lake and the idea of putting his music on into the value verse, into Bitcoin, and I mean, it's safe to say you're probably 30x your Spotify earnings. 30x in 12 months.
Wow,
and
that's great.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, Spotify gets paid. You get paid in dollars or pounds. They convert it. Dollars. So he gets paid in, you know, one of the top shit coins, and in the value verse, he gets paid in Bitcoin, which, sits in a wallet. And
is the 30x? Is that when we talk about Bitcoin without the appreciation on the date it's paid, or is that with the appreciation?
Good question. No, I think that's included. I mean, 30 might not even be right. It might be more than that. No, it's probably more than that now of appreciation.
Yeah, because that's a big thing, right? If you calculate in the gain depreciation, especially because it's the quickest way and the cheapest way to get to Bitcoin, if you directly get paid in Bitcoin, that's really cool. Yeah, let's just directly stump into that. Why did you decide in the first place to see the value for value space and did you call it value verse? I like that name.
Yeah, I think the whole language. I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion between me and you about, you know, there's a lot of things in Bitcoin where one person's value verse is another person's DMU, which is like short for decentralized music. You know, just like how one person's private seed is another person's private key. You know, there's these little idiosyncrasies where the language is not quite universal. So you definitely see you have like different terminologies for different things. So I know a lot of the American guys. They call it the value verse. They call it V for V.
I think that's pretty good, man. I think that's it's just instantly it does, you know, tells you what it is. So it's like, it makes pure sense.
Yeah, give him back. So it's essentially, I think Adam Curry. Do you know Adam Curry?
The godfather of podcasting.
Yeah, the podfather, they call him. He obviously introduced the whole value for value thing, but I think also Radiohead also did it probably around a similar time. Actually, it's probably around a similar time when
2008, that was
when Adam was that in Rainbows?
Yeah.
When Adam Curry started his podcast, No Agenda, 16 years ago, Radiohead did a similar thing.
Yeah.
And Adam Curry's thing was always value is what it means to you. So we're not going to tell you pay £5 to subscribe a month. It's whatever you can afford, you know, whatever you want to give us. And Radiohead, with their album In Rainbows, it was exactly the same premise. It was like, our album is free to download on the website. If you want to give us any money, go for it and give us whatever you think it was. And that led to some people giving them like £1,000, you know, and some people, you know, giving like 50p, whatever. But Radiohead ended up making more money from that one album than they'd made from all of their albums put together under a record label, etc. So for me, I already knew about the Radiohead, that economic model. And with Bitcoin, it's growing so big and people are building so much stuff on it all the time. I knew it was only a matter of time that this would grow to, incorporating music, incorporating all those things. And I suppose ultimately it destroys the Facebook model of ads and YouTube in a way, because rather than me having to pay £15 a month or whatever it is to subscribe to YouTube, I don't get any ads. We don't get any ads on Wav Lake. We just, feel like we can share value backwards and forwards, send micropayments.
That seems. It's really interesting when we look at the ad model. Do you think the ad model will actually completely be vanished and it will be value for value, or is there a place for like an ad model? I mean, there are different kinds of ad models. There's a YouTube ad model where they just place ads that they think is good. Then there's like the corporation and partnership ad model where companies pay a podcaster to I don't know, wear a shirt or whatever, and there's different kinds of that, but we're talking now probably about the traditional YouTube ad model where they just put random ads in the video stream.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, YouTube is becoming almost unwatchable because the amount of ads that are going in now. You'll watch like a 5-minute video and there'll be a minute and a half worth of ads in the video. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, like I say, I don't necessarily want to subscribe. But I think Heather said the other day on Radio Detox, I think all of these models will exist, but obviously when you're looking at clickbait is really generated by the fact that they need to sell their website to advertisers and they need to prove that they get a certain amount of hits. Hence why you get such sensationalist headlines. And the thing is, with our news cycle in the UK, it's constantly pushing out sensational headlines, and it's all just to create a comment or create a reaction for people to get triggered by it. Do you know what I mean? So they'll visit the website, or they'll right click and send a message, or vent about it. Whereas for me, the Valueverse, I think, does completely. It will obsolete those models eventually, but we're really early at the moment, so there's a place for all of them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's weird, and I love kind of the music industry is such a good example, I think, of how there was an artist, Kate Nash. I don't know if you've heard of from over there, but she was quite big. She had like a hit, I reckon, about must have been 15 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
And it's so mad. Literally, I caught it yesterday on Instagram, I think it was, and it's for BBC Radio 6, and she just said about this kind of coming up, but there's not, because she's just like the music industry is destroyed. It's destroyed itself, basically. But I don't think enough artists know or trust this because of they've been so damaged by the music industry. So I think it was slowly, like myself, Joe Martin, other people, Sam Wav Lake, that as long as you keep on going, I think people will slowly just start coming to the table, and rightly so, because of like to get a V2V, I suppose, machine going. It's going to take a while, but of course, artists, they've got to survive. So.
What do you think is the influence of the bad monetary system to that, and what part of is just like human nature of wanting to click on shiny things? Is the fiat or the bad monetary system making it like the short time preference, the wanting it everything now because the money is fleeing away? Like, what part is that playing in the music being destroyed and that thing?
I think they're running out of ideas. I think or labels are just running out of ideas of where they can basically monetize or get their money back from. We haven't. What was it? Was it you that said to me the other day? I think it might have been you that sent it about how many bands or artists were actually, or how many bands were in the top 10, or wasn't it? Was it in the top 10 or something? Top 50 of like any of the charts, and it's like it's void because no label wants to put money anymore into 5 people on stage when they know that somebody can just do it at home on a computer or just get an artist out on their own. So I think they're just running out of ideas. I think that it'll be really interesting to see what kind of deals go. But it all comes from greed anyway, and people basically have just taken the piss out of, I think, the
on
music
the
industry
split,
for
like
years.
99% record label, 1% to the artist.
Like,
So the proof of work, I mean, that's a proof of stake system, because you've got a record label that has, infinite power due to just being established a long time and having the ability to build up the fiat. But I think ultimately fiat, and we see it in every industry. We see inflation destroy every industry. I think what fiat does is it's the death of rock and roll, and it's the death of anti-establishment rhetoric. Because during COVID, for example, we had, I think, 5 real famous rock stars, pop stars talk out about the tyranny of, of COVID, sorry. And for a fact it's because the record companies have power over their artists, that if you say anything, you're going to lose your recording contract. And that's a very centralized fiat thing to do. You must conform at all times. Whereas I don't know about you, but I would prefer my rock and roll stars to be speaking out if the government started taking the piss. Look at, Sex Pistols and all that back in the 70s. It was very much a punk movement that came out of an anti-establishment position. Whereas now, all of the supposed rock and roll stars that appear at Glastonbury or that get all the big gigs, they wouldn't say anything to anything. In fact, they'd insist on seeing your vaccine passport before you come into the gig. And the idea that rock and roll stars parrot the establishment's message, I think that's ultimately what fiat does to the industry,
I heard a story. There's a band called Soft Play now. They're called Soft Play, but they were called Slaves. And I can't be specific, but I'm pretty sure they changed their name because of they weren't getting some love by certain people. So
because they were slaves. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like
the algorithm couldn't pick it up. Yeah.
They're a punk band.
Yeah.
So it's like it's mad where we go. I think there's only a couple of bands that I think are speaking out about anything, and it'd be interesting to see what happens to Idols.
Yeah.
To see if they come over to the V2V kind of system, and one of them's got to do it, and I think that's when you'll get the sway of a lot of bands and artists coming over.
Yeah, so I think that's what it is. It's just that ability, freedom of speech, to be able to speak out without fear of being cancelled. Because much like we had all the doctors and most public figures during COVID, they wouldn't go against the narrative. And, I want my rock stars to be a little bit more like Longy and not like Sam Smith, to be honest. I don't think...
do you know what
I mean?
Yeah.
Because everyone came... I don't know if you know who Sam Smith is, but he's obviously... he's a huge pop star in this country, but he's so kind of... every flag that he can wave, he waves that flag, whether it's a rainbow one or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And to me, that is the establishment message. Whether it's through ESG, whether it's through all the companies that change their flags to rainbow flags, he is the poster boy for that kind of movement, which we see as normal human beings as being slightly degenerate. And I'm not really sure I want my teenage daughters to be exposed to that level of degeneracy. Well, that's where fiat land is now. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny how freedom of speech is really recognizable when you look at the artists, when you look at comedians, musicians, and then you can actually see like, what is this? What is the status of freedom of speech in that particular country? It's I never thought about that connection actually, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's the death of art. It's the death of art, because much like the COVID doctors, not one of them wanted to speak out against the jab or anything because, they've got a mortgage and they've got family support, or better not say anything. This way we can have artists earn real money and really give a big middle finger up to the establishment.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one that people, they you get that kind of silent phone call at 2 a.m. of somebody saying, "Do you know what I mean? If you want to go ahead, everything will be dropped." And you just think, why don't you should? There's a confidence in being able to do this. Like I've seen, Aaron's exposed me to. It's just a completely fair way of doing something. And I think that's why I know we've jumped straight in, by the way, of going straight down this road with it all. But I don't know. I just think it really needs to be said and really kind of like brought home to people that this is happening. It's not something that's like, going to happen. It's like it's happening. So I think it's like it's just got to be said, basically.
Yeah. So coming on your show, it's like there's probably a lot of Bitcoiners out there that don't realise that these platforms that are being built on top of Bitcoin, they're going to take some shaking. Do you know what I mean? And it took Spotify and it took the record companies probably 20 years after Napster to capture the industry again. Do you know what I mean? And all the record companies, you say, how does Fiat affect it? Well, the record companies pretty much own all the radio stations as well. So how do you discover new genres of music? How do you discover new music when it's the same formulaic pop being played everywhere, on the radio, on TV adverts, and all of those strings they're all controlled by the centralized, record companies.
Were you before on a record label, or how did this, or did you switch now completely to individual, or being independent, or were you always independent?
I think secretly I've always wanted that, and also I've flirted with labels. I've had deals in that, but because of my intuition, I've never committed fully to them, because I'm just like, wait, what? So you're getting that, and you're getting that, and I'm getting that, and it's just like I don't understand why people would do business like that. I don't understand it. Makes no sense, because we should all win. We can all win. So it's like I that's what I don't get. So yeah, I think it'll just be interesting to see what comes out of it. I'm sure Wav Lake will. I don't know. Something will come of it. I know they're obviously a distribution company at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens with Bitcoin and record labels. It'll be so interesting.
Well, I think there's a lot of growth as well, because when we put Longy on there, probably this 18 months ago, it's May 2023. I think we put our first track on there. There's probably only about 40 artists on there, but now I think Wav Lake themselves have just passed 1,000 artists. So 40 to 1,000, that's probably 20x as well.
Wouldn't it? Within a year and a bit, yeah.
So that's in a year. So yeah, it's really about getting the message out that these tools exist. It's a tool, it's like anything. Bitcoin is a tool. It's there to be used in whatever way you can kind of use it. And the fact that people are confident to be building their entire music platforms on top of Bitcoin, knowing that it's not going to necessarily go anywhere. And the fact that, Wav Lake, may be somewhere where you can host your stuff, but you've also got the ability through apps like Fountain, which is a podcast player, where I can host music on my own website with my own server and share the index with Fountain, and it will go and grab it from my server. So there's that decentralization to music there as well.
How is that site called? Wav Like or Wav Link?
Wav Lake. So WAV LAKE. So you get WAV files. I imagine that's probably you get like a .wav file, which is a sound file. I imagine it's that, and then lake, obviously having a lake of WAV files.
Yeah.
But yeah, for anyone listening, stop spending your money with Spotify. Stop sending them £15 a month or €15 a month, whatever it is, because your favourite artists are getting probably 0.002% of that £15 a month. Come over to the Valueverse, come over to Wav Lake, download Fountain, and check out some of the music there. There you go. That's the Wav Lake one. In fact, that's one of Longy's tracks right there in the middle, the grey cover below Wav Lake Radio. That one there, that's one of his tracks there. You can basically click that, and you can listen to it for free. You don't have to spend a penny. You can listen to it for free. You can download it for free. But the term value for value comes from, I appreciate this, I'm going to send some Bitcoin to the artist and also send them a comment. Say, love the tune. I mean, that's what you said you liked about it.
Yeah.
The fact that fans can talk direct to the artists and, you know, engage with them, which just kind of doesn't really exist anywhere else.
No,
really.
I don't. No, not on any other platform. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That's really cool. So it's also natively integrated with the Lightning system. You can directly send them sats with a message. That's really cool. And Fountain has the same thing. You said for musicians also.
Exactly the same. So, you know, Fountain, if you listen to podcasts on Fountain, they'll pay you a little bit of Bitcoin. Fountain have gone down the route. So with Wav Lake, you would need to add some Satoshis to your wallet first before you can start sending people Bitcoin. But with Fountain, if you listen to a few podcasts every day, you know, you can actually earn Bitcoin. You can earn Satoshis through listening to podcasts. And then you can reshare that value. You know, you can send that straight to an artist or straight to a podcaster, and send a message as well. You know, it's one of those things where you can actually engage with the podcaster, knowing they're going to see your comment or your remark. I mean, just go on to Fountain and go in no agenda. You know, the comments are full of people all engaging with the show, and they're all sending their value direct to the podcasters. You know.
Do you think that value for value system has? I had almost a heated discussion with Bitcoiners on a Bitcoin conference of setting prices versus being value for value, and obviously it's not all the time possible. Like if you want to sell a hardware device, I don't know if you can set just a random thing because you have to pay for the hardware device that you created. So I don't know if value for value is completely for everything, but there are some people that say a lot of the future economic will be built on top of value for value for every transactions for people transacting to each other, or do you see it more on the artists and the content creators and the creative space, or can that actually come towards other industries?
Well, I think like Michael Saylor says, you know, if you've got a business and you want to survive long term, you're going to be doing whatever you can to try and get exposure to Bitcoin, to try and sell your services for Bitcoin. Because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. So the sooner, there's three ways to get into Bitcoin. You can earn Bitcoin, you can mine Bitcoin, you can exchange your electricity for Bitcoin by mining, or you can exchange your dirty fiat for Bitcoin. And with these artists have got a much more pressing need for getting paid because Bitcoin solves their problem of not basically being paid for their art. So if it does that for artists and it does it for independent content creators, podcasters like yourself, I'm a hairdresser as well. So I've got clients that I charge Bitcoin for, and it comes back to the basic economics of everything I buy using Bitcoin gets cheaper every year. Everything I buy using fiat costs me more every year. Providing you spend and replace, so if I spend 20,000, I did last week, I bought some honey off a Bitcoin honey producer, 20,000 sats. As long as I replace that 20,000 sats, I'm not going to have a Bitcoin pizza moment,
I see.
I think it also, sorry, but I think it actually makes you better as a person because it enables you to obviously zap and stuff like that, but it's instantly like, I don't know, just going
the long-term thinking.
Like, it makes you be more aware of, am I a generous person, or what do I feel? Like when we look at art, say a picture, a Banksy or anyone, like it should be instantly zapped. Like you should be instantly, if you like it, and I think
if it brings you pleasure,
yeah, completely. And I think that's the bit that I'm like, I just think it's such an amazing system to to kind of be into, and I think it suits music down to. I think it suits music brilliantly.
And we have so many trends coming together actually, because I think the internet was the first one where artists got they had a direct communication to their fans. They all of a sudden could directly speak to them, and there's no middleman in between. And then we still had the internet with that fiat system and with that fiat mentality. So Bitcoin kind of forces that, and direct communication with the internet being on all the platforms, on all the social media platforms. And then on top of that, with Bitcoin as the payment method, is really, really good. And then on top of that, we are moving more and more from the centralized social media platforms to decentralized social media platforms, even though the trend is very early. Like there are almost no people almost no people on Nostra compared to all the Facebooks and Twitters and all the rest of it. But in general, it's just like a force coming towards the individual rather than being some label company, some agency, some whatever in between, which is, I think, really, really cool and really, really positive.
I think,
well, we got you on Nostr this week, didn't we?
Yeah.
And even though it's early on Nostr, we get more engagement and we get more engagement with everyone on Nostr than we do on Twitter, because I love his. I bet you've had some beer in that glass, haven't you? I mean, what's that, pint and a half?
I don't have beer in there. I always drink my water in there, but there's supposed to be beer in there.
But yeah, we're getting a lot of engagement on Nostr. And much more than we get on Twitter, than we get on Instagram in some respects. So even though, you've not got millions and millions of people on there, there's enough like-minded, and that's the thing, it's like-minded individuals that, which see through all the crap, see through all the fiat stuff.
It's a very high signal and very early group. Obviously, I think if Nostra is successful in onboarding a lot of people, the noise will also be on Nostra, similar to Twitter. But right now, it's a really cool place to be, as there's like a really early high signal group out there, and it's really what made you adopt Nostra too? Like what made you be on Nostra?
We were told to, weren't we? Well, no, I got on Nostra. It's probably about a year now, isn't it? Was it launched about a year ago? I think, yeah, because when I was originally putting your tracks onto Wav Lake right in the beginning, I think I got onto Nostra then. But literally for the first 6 months, I really didn't see much, and it was a little bit slow. But now it seems to have built up quite a bit. The apps have got better. Like I use Amethyst. You're on Damus, I think. So the apps have got a little bit better. But no, it was Heather, really. Heather said that we should get onto Nostra because we should be investing some time in it, because the engagement, and like you say, the signal's very high there. So we got Longy on it last week, and I suppose Nostra even removes another level of gatekeeping, doesn't it? Because you can put a track on Nostra and someone can zap you directly through Nostra, can't you?
Yeah, I almost feel a bit bad of putting videos on YouTube and then putting YouTube on Nostra. Do you understand that? Like actual official videos and things like that. You just think to yourself, because if everyone's just seems to be getting behind you, like on Nostra and stuff like that, they're like, we're all running to the same thing. But I think with the fiat world, it's a hard one, because everyone's, I don't know, it's almost a bit untrustworthy when it comes down to, like, you just don't know. You don't know whether you're getting enough traffic in there. You don't really. I just don't think you can. The gauges are everywhere. The gauges they're fucked, basically. Yeah. So I think over where we are now, man, I love the fact that you can just see what everyone's. I don't feel that. It feels alive. I think it feels alive, and it's not stale. And it's like, and there's a positivity, I think, behind it as well.
Yeah, definitely. The sentiment on Nostra, like you say, it's high signal. It doesn't, like if I was to log on Twitter now, it would be talking about all the same talking points as what's been on, BBC News today. And, if you understand that everything on BBC News is a lie and misinformation, then why would you want to even partake in that world of people essentially just wasting their time getting bent out of shape for no reason? Why not go to Nostra and say, hey guys, here's my thing over here, where people are actually kind of like crying out for it. So yeah, it was Heather Larson who told me to get Longy on there and to spend some time, showing him the way. And yeah, we're not regretting it so far. Yeah, like I say, Nostra is really cool, and it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves next as well.
I partnered up with Coin Vigilante. This is the most beautiful Bitcoin timepiece that I ever saw created by anyone. Look at that beauty. I love it so much. Coin Vigilante made a perfect Bitcoin watch. That's the perfect, subtle, elegant way to go out there and show that you are a Bitcoiner. And that watch brand is Bitcoin only. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece, and make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. If you watch or listen to my podcast on a regular basis, I guess you already bought some Bitcoin. And now the most important step is to keep the Bitcoin. Keep them secure in a hardware wallet. My personal recommendation for hardware wallet is the BitBox. It's super secure. It's simple to set up. It's also a perfect gift for a friend who has still their Bitcoin on an exchange. And you can get a 5% discount with the code Robin at the checkout. Visit bitbox.swiss/Robin to get your BitBox. And the next step is to really level up your sovereignty as an individual. You have to have the most secure self-custody setup. You have to secure your own devices. You have to protect your privacy. You have to set up an inheritance plan. And depending on where you live, you even want to have a plan B, a citizenship where you can move in case something goes really wrong. And through all those steps, the Bitcoin way is guiding you through step by step. And if you visit thebitcoinway.com/partners/Robin, you even get a 30-minute free call to find out how you can level up your sovereignty. Yeah, it's. I think most of the mainstream media is actually using Twitter as a primary source. So like, I don't know how it's in the UK, but I saw, I had yesterday a discussion with 3 Americans, and they said that basically, and in Austria, it's also like that. When you are going through like a week's worth of mainstream media, it's almost impossible to get through there if without them noticing some tweets or something like that. So they always go to Twitter to even find the sources. So I feel like Twitter is like the right now a really good spot to find primary sources, because a lot of people post their thoughts there first. But I think in the long term, people will tend towards Nostra and Nostra applications for the primary source, because like, just if I announce something, I would announce it first on Twitter, then on Nostra, and this would be kind of the primary sources. And I like that we tend towards more and more going direct to the source and not just having a newsman reading down the news every week. And it's kind of like it went through so many filters, and it's like, someone says that, and then you hear the explanation of that, what he said on the news. I just want to know what he said. I just want to directly know the source.
It's an opinion, isn't it? It's gone from not reporting the news, because the news used to be, today 4 armed men robbed a bank. And it was factual. Now it, like you say, the source is there, and then it's passed through somebody else, because, most people's time preference is so short. They don't have the time to sift through it all. They literally get as deep as a headline, and then by reading the headline, they think they know the story. And a lot of times headlines are deceiving. They're not even correct. I'm sure, Donald Trump Donald Trump's kind of like felt like that over the last few years. You know what I mean? Every headline involving him has pretty much been slighted against him, and that's the same with anyone. Whether it's Julian Assange, whether it's Ed Snowden. Mainstream media are gonna put a negative slant on those people. That you wouldn't necessarily get in Twitter. I mean, at least Twitter is a place where you have got opinions from both sides of the fence going. I know a lot of people are migrating over to Blue Sky and, all these other platforms. Even Gab, like Gab was one back in the day. And on Gab, it's just right-wing content. On Blue Sky, it's just left-wing content. And it's like, yeah, it's not really healthy to be in an echo chamber like that. I suppose when Telegram, because obviously a lot of us went to Telegram in 2020 because of the whole COVID thing. There was a lot of censorship on Facebook and Instagram and stuff. So a lot of people migrated to Telegram. But after, are you on Blue Sky, are you?
No, I'm not actually. I never heard about it. So I now I just typed it in to see what it is. I never heard about it.
Yeah, so a lot of people have been on Twitter, announcing their resignation from Twitter, if you like, and saying, "Oh, I've had it with this place. I'm going over here," and I think the narrative is it's mainly for degenerates, and yeah.
But I think a lot, go and open up a new Instagram page and then see what it gives you in your search column, and it's always. I done this the other day, and literally it was showing me stuff. I was like, this is not what I want to see. Like, this is just shite that, I don't know. It just took me down a road where I was like, this is so, they've got it so wrong. They're always trying to catch people out and stuff like that. So I just think it's just going to, don't know. I mean, I think it'll always be there, but yeah, I think those, the apps are people are just starting to make sense of it. I think themselves a little bit more, what I would say probably.
Yeah, I think people have only just become aware of echo chambers, haven't they, in the last couple of years? And yeah, I mean, have you ever been to a dinner party and had a discussion from someone on the other side? They are absolutely convinced their narrative is true and factual. And there's, you can't generally have a conversation without someone losing their shit. And like I say, I think all that is primed from mainstream media because that is their entire goal. It's to get people worked up. It's to get them, scared. I mean, they're fear machines. They're lie machines. They're fear machines. And when you're in Bitcoin land, when you're in Nostr, when you're on Wav Lake, when you're listening to Bitcoiners, they're fearless. They don't have exposure to that. We know where we're going. We're all very optimistic. We're very hopeful. And, it's quite nice to be right because, look, I mean, the reason why Bitcoin's $100,000, it's not because we're wrong, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's not
100%. And I think it comes down to, I always think freedom is optionality. If you have the option to choose between things, you can be on YouTube and Spotify, but you can also be just on Fountain and Wav Lake. So like you have the option where you want to be, and so to a large degree, we actually have more and more freedom within the last couple of years and even decades coming our way because of those platforms, because we have those outlets. You can choose what you consume. Think about like a few decades before that, if you had to if you want to be up to date, you kind of had to go to the newspapers and the news agencies. You didn't have those amazing tools. You can be on Twitter now, you can be on Nostr, you can be on all those platforms. And that freedom in itself is extremely valuable, I think, and something that we gotta have to be aware of how amazing that is, that we have that information always accessible for us. On the flip side, it's kind of it's too much sometimes for people. People are too much on those platforms, but I think it's really positive that we have so much optionality these days.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is freedom of choice at the end of the day. If you're quite happy in your little fearful echo chamber, then by all means. The whole point of Bitcoin is that it's a voluntary system. No one's got a gun to your head saying you must do this. And that's one of the kind of founding principles of Bitcoin. The fact that it's voluntary, the fact that it's incorruptible, and it's something that we've never seen before. And most mainstream people, most normies as we call them, those people that do still read newspapers, those people that still watch BBC News over here, they're not getting it yet. They don't understand it yet.
But I don't think they realise what's actually. Why would you want to sit down at 6 o'clock every night and go, I wonder how many deaths there've been today? I have no time for that. But that may be just me, but I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure, given a certain narrative, you wouldn't want the negative one. And I know it's incredibly sad that does happen in life, but I don't want to be told about it. Because I don't know what it's giving me.
Absolutely, 100%. And I have a good example to make the point clearer. I like to be up to date on what's going on with Austrian politics, just to know if we're going in the right direction or wrong direction. So I have like a day. Sometimes I do it every day. Sometimes I do it once a week, depending on how busy the current schedule is. But there's basically a morning show, a midday show, and an evening show in the Austrian mainstream news. And I like to skim through just the topics. And I need, if you consume the whole shows, you need around 1.5 hours, 1 hour, something like that. And I get one day in 3-4 minutes. Because most of it is there was an accident on that Autobahn, there was someone murdered, and maybe someone likes to know that, but I don't. I don't care what happened in some neighborhood, village where I don't know anyone. What happened there? I would like to know where is the politics going, because this is a decision-making thing of should I stay or should I leave, maybe, or how should I allocate my time? So I only find 5% maybe valuable. So I usually skim through a whole week worth of news in 20 minutes and have all the things that I need. Unfortunately, Austria is so small. There are not a lot of content creators where there's a podcast format where I can have once a week, 20 minutes podcast that just gives me the most important stuff that happened. I guess in the UK and in America, where there's a bigger thing, there's probably better offers for that. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to report on those things.
But going back to what we were saying originally, how that fear sells. Do you think the news networks wouldn't be reporting about, climate change in, Tanzania or whatever, or climate change in, the Falklands? It's tantamount to child abuse, but the fact of the matter is that fear sells, and that fear is it's so emotionally powerful that because it's going to make the viewer react to it. This is why you don't see good news stories on the news, because no one's not fussed. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to go, oh, that's really lovely that person's now 100 years old and they've won the lottery or whatever. They're not going to react to that. But if there's a fear-driven agenda, and this is why value for value, we hope, kills it, because you're right. There should be a news network that's a very hyper local. And if your news network is basically being funded with Bitcoiners saying we want to know the news in our particular area, then they're not going to need to do the fear-driven narratives in order to get the clicks onto the website, to get notoriety and to keep the sponsors happy, because it's all about the sponsors.
It's
I
mad.
mean,
You can see it on the podcast.
Look, I keep going back to COVID, but I think it opened a lot of eyes. Our government in the UK was the biggest advertiser. They bought every single newspaper, and every single newspaper front cover and back cover had, fear on it. And that was all paid for by the taxpayers. So you've got the taxpayers literally funding the government, funding their fear. And you're just like, I don't agree with this. I don't want you to use my tax money on, do you know what I mean? Fear propaganda. So yeah, this is what we all hope, and this is the reason why we're doing this, because the government can print up money, extract it from the taxpayers, do whatever they want with that money, despite what the taxpayer says, because they've already done it up front. They've already bought it, and then when they've invested badly, there's no accountability. All those people that were in Parliament in 2020, all voting for us to lock down, all voting for mandatory mask legislation, they're all still in power. I mean, if you were that bad at your job, if you were that incompetent, you wouldn't still be in that job, would you? But how does that work in politics? How is that possible? Like, how do we let them off the hook? I mean,
I hope the accountability comes with Bitcoin back. I hope that actually changes. Do you think that Bitcoin has the power to change how governments are structured?
I hope so. I mean, I know there was a couple of projects last year where they were trying to get voting on the blockchain. They were trying to organise things. I think there is a way to do it, because obviously, there's more people vote in X Factor than that vote at the ballot box. Do you know what I mean? At a general election. So if they can do it via phones, there must be a proof of work driven way where everyone's vote can end up on a blockchain, and all of those things, such as let's send £22 billion to Africa for a carbon capture scheme. What, we couldn't all log in or send a Satoshi to register our vote to say, do you want 22 billion of taxpayers' money sent to the other side of the world or to Ukraine to spend $3 billion on rockets? Because I'd be voting immediately. Yeah, no thanks.
There is a project, and I had him on the podcast, where they are trying to verify elections using Bitcoin, and they did that now with Guatemala, and that's basically an article. And I think here he gets interviewed, and that's really interesting. They do it with open timestamps and putting on Bitcoin. And I think a county in America is trying that out soon. I think it was Georgia. I could be wrong here. I think Georgia, the county in America, is trying that next. This is just to make elections more verifiable and more secure, that you cannot tamper with them as much. It doesn't really change a lot in terms of how government are structured, but it already makes a big difference if elections cannot be tampered with. And yeah, of course, like has been a lot of debates, like has been the past election in 2020 been tampered with? Yes or no? I have no clue. I'm also not in America, but even if we have to ask the question and it's something we're discussing, that is already wrong. It should not be a discussion point if the elections are tampered with or not. That should be like, of course they're not tampered with. We can trust that system.
Yeah, but it's still, for me, that still seems like a proof of stake model, because we can verify whether someone got elected. We can verify the election integrity, but we can't then verify the personality or the lobbyists or the funders of that said politician, because Keir Starmer, who's proven himself to be one of the most communist British politicians of all time, he has literally he was elected last year on the basis that nobody wanted to vote the other party. So he got in by default. He got one of the lowest vote shares of all time, but he's got a pretty comprehensive mandate to do whatever he wants. And their manifesto was pretty much nothing. They didn't say anything they were going to do. They didn't actually commit to saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. All they committed to was saying, we're not going to put taxes up, we're not going to do this. And within 100 days, they've gone against everything they've said. So I think election integrity, yeah, that's fine, but how do you verify the politician that you've elected? I think that's the first thing. But then the second thing down the line, I think it would be much more local. It might even become, as close as your local council sending out a message, vote on whether your bins are collected once or twice a week. That's a real democracy. Because I remember during lockdown, emailing my politician to say, please, when you go into Parliament, can you vote against lockdown? Can you vote against mandatory masks? Well, this politician proved to me that he wasn't there working for me. He just parroted the government's point back to me. Do you know what I mean? It was the wrong way round. He proved in that moment he's not working for me. He's working for, the parasites at the top of the food chain over in Westminster. So I think the blockchain or Bitcoin or whatever, however it work, if I could send one sat to register my vote on a local issue, I think that's downstream of it. And I think then you're living in a real democracy,
Yeah, and it's also the question of like how they're funded, and as long as they have the money printer, as long as they have the ability to just print money if they do mistakes, and I think not a lot will change. And also the power of the money printer. Maybe they still have the money printer, but Bitcoin is just like the dominant form of the asset. And if they print a little bit of money, that will directly skyrocket Bitcoin. So they have accountability that way. So I just hope that Bitcoin will become that accountability for governments, where when they are spending money badly, they will be punished for that in the Bitcoin purchasing power, I would say. And maybe it even takes away, it's a whole debate in Bitcoin, but it maybe even takes away completely the fiat money printer. So maybe they completely are free of any possibilities of earning money through the fiat money printer, and they rely on taxes. This makes a huge difference, because all of a sudden we have to pay for everything, and we have to make aware of what we are paying for, and then they have to say, oh yeah, we use that money for that, and then the public say like, oh, well, like why would we spend on that? Like that doesn't make sense. Now, if they want to spend on something that is not popular, they just print the money for that. That's easy, and people don't even know it.
Yeah, I love the idea that, Bitcoin price is essentially a lie barometer for governments. The fact that Bitcoin's gone up to $100,000 says that your government has been, should we say, ineffective or inefficient? Let's say inefficient with spending. And, when the majority of these government jobs that are coming out are paid for, using taxpayer, like plundering the tax base, and then our government here having to put taxes up even more to pay for more government bureaucracy and more positions, Bitcoin's price going up is literally an indicator that your government is throwing your money down the toilet. Yeah,
it's a scoreboard of how bad Fiat and the government is doing right now.
100%. That's how I like to look at it. Because if Bitcoin wouldn't have any value if we had a money that we could save in that kept its value and that wasn't, deflated and printed. That's the one way to kill Bitcoin, is make governments smaller and make them spend within their means. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
We all know that will never happen.
Never in a million years. Money printer go burr.
No, it'd be interesting to see where this world goes though with it, because it literally is just it's exploding within itself, and so it's going to be really interesting to see. I think in the next few years where, even what Elon Musk done with Twitter when he went in and got rid of half of the people that were there.
Oh yeah, 90%. I think he fired 90% of people, and Twitter as an experience, whether the content's got any better or not is debatable. But it's certainly in terms of features, Twitter basically didn't change for about 10 years. The features are exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? And since he came in, he obviously created a few new features, which are pretty good. But yeah, that's what we need. We need to get across the fact that we don't need the government interfering in every minutiae of our lives. And through rock and roll, that is one way we can get the message across, almost in a subconscious way. This is not all right anymore. Do you know what I mean? We've had enough. And, if Longy can express that through music and obviously be fearless in what he's having to say with his lyrics, because, he's not being throttled by YouTube or, the algorithms, Bitcoin and the value for value system will enable more people, I think, to sit up and take notice of what's going on with Bitcoin. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I just tried to figure out how much Twitter actually fired, and it's over 80%. Yeah, it's like they are now down from 8,000 employees to a little bit over 1,000, and they're looking at coming closer to 500 full-time engineers. so he really just get down the list and slim it down.
Guillotined them, mate. Yeah. Guillotine. Well, how about just remove 1% of government and see what happens? It makes me laugh with government, because every August, I don't know if it's the same in Austria, and I can imagine it is because Fiat systems and all that. But every August or July, I think it coincides with the school holidays in the UK. For about 7 or 8 weeks, all the politicians, they go on holiday. Like, no one goes into House of Parliament. And you know what? Everything works. Like, everything works perfectly. Do you know what I mean? They're not on the front page of the newspaper saying, we're going to do this, or, we're going to support Ukraine, we're going to put more wind turbine, or bird splicing crucifixes up in the country. Do you know what I mean? Everything works for those 6, 7, 8 weeks where they all go on holiday.
It's similar in Austria, where the summers are a little bit calmer, but there are parliament there are, how are they called in English? I have no clue, but yeah, those parliament meetings going on, the big ones. And often we have actually elections in September. So then from July, June, August, it really starts to be busy again, not with actual politics, but with the election process and their advertising for it. And I feel like the smaller the country, the closer the people are to the actual politicians. And that's actually an advantage of being in a small country, because if you are the head of a country with 300 million people, as in America, that makes a difference. You're not as close to the people if they are just 6 million people or 8 million people. That's why El Salvador works that good, because he actually knows what the people want. You don't know, you have no clue what your country wants if there are hundreds of millions of people. But if that's just at 1/10 of the size, you have a way better shot in seeing what the people like. So sometimes I feel smaller, the more regional politicians get, the better they become, and the more global they get, the worse they get, and the more superficial and the more just high level they are, where they're he doesn't know what politics actually are needed. But that's just a subjective feeling. I've not done any research on that.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think Bitcoin does have the potential to remove a lot of that wastage from government, simply from the point of view that you've got a situation where things can be automated. things can be done without. It's that Mark Twain thing. If the person that doesn't understand the problem, then that person is part of the problem. If someone's salary relies on them not solving the problem, then they are part of the problem. That is essentially the politicians are just going to be voting for them to have pay rises when they're obviously taxing everybody else in the country. So it's two-tier. And we see it everywhere. You see two-tiered stuff everywhere. And this is why we think music is a kind of it's a universal language that everyone is going to kind of get on board. And if we can't orange pill enough people just by telling them that the system's broken, and then they can see the system's broken because their taxes are going up and their savings are going. Well, maybe we can reach them through this different pathway of music, because maybe there's artists that they've not discovered yet that would open their eyes to it. Oh, this is like, it could be a bit gimmicky at the beginning. Oh, I can actually send this artist a message, say, oh, that song really means a lot to me. And do you know what I mean? I think if we can kind of infiltrate people's mindscape through music, and then that leads them to Bitcoin, then I think what Wav Lake and what Fountain are doing, I think could end up being really powerful for the long term of everything, of everything.
Maybe I think he's breaking down the barriers of what we've been built to think that we should represent, instead of actually what we feel we should represent. In terms of I don't think we ever listen to our intuition enough, and that's why it's so easy to get into a system of have your dinner, sit down, watch the news, listen to shite, read the paper, more shite, more negativity. So I think he's just breaking down those barriers, and I think I can't understand how this probably wasn't here years ago. To be fair, with Bitcoin, like literally in the 50s or 60s. I can't. It's just taking this amount of time to evolve, basically.
Well, I think it took 40 years to solve the double spend problem. So that's what was solved in 2008. So it literally couldn't be built. Like, people have built cryptography in the 70s, and they've built all these different mechanisms which go into building Bitcoin. But Satoshi was the guy that had that final blockchain, was almost like the final solution to it. Yeah. And the extra solution to that was him disappearing and being anonymous, because if he'd have made it under a corporation... Yeah, of course, the FBI turns up and says, shut everything down. Do you know what I mean? So,
but you do feel slightly naughty being over here, because it's almost like you're looking back at them going, hello, like, we're come on over. Like, this is fair land.
Yeah, the ocean's warm. The
sea's warm.
Yeah. Just dip a toe in, see what you think.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
100%, yeah. And I just wanted to know, as you said, for slimming down, I think a lot of people trying to fix something that shouldn't be there in the first place. They're just working on something that we should replace at all. When we now think of all the things that we already covered in the podcast and where things are going, is that a window into the future? How do you see that playing out in the next 20, 30 years with internet, Bitcoin, Nostra, decentralizing things, maybe even influencing how governments work? What are you guys thinking of in terms of how could that world look like? Maybe also from the musician perspective, how could that world look like in 20, 30, 50 years, whatever time frame you like to focus on?
If there's any of it left.
Well, that's the thing with the fiat world, isn't it?
Yeah, because I feel like this is, you'd be building, 100%. I think it's.
How will music change under a Bitcoin
Well, the
standard?
language is already changing. Like, my language will now change because of, I feel that like there's a system coming into place where it's fair, but also it's hard for an artist, I think, because also you're up against the best songs come from pain and hardships. So to then come over to here, my language. Heather said this, didn't she? How will your language change? Talking about Bitcoin, and it's not like I've got a lot of songs talking about money, but I suppose I'm thinking about it now. I've got a few. But it will be interesting to see how that looks for artists, because I know it sounds mad, but I think as humans, we have to have friction in our lives to be working up against something. But we get lost in this like greed. Someone's got to have more than someone else, and it's like, well, why is that then? And they may work harder, they may do more, but I think when you're all sitting at the table and it's you're in a fair kind of on a fair table, then you're gonna start thinking. We're trying to pull traits that have been amplified over the years of not being very good, and I think slowly what this does V2V system that will slowly just destroy them traits.
Yeah, I mean, I think how Bitcoin influences everything. I can only talk from personal experience, but for me, it's a much more long-term outlook. I eat better, I sleep more. Do you know what I mean? I have more free time to be able to help people like Longy, bring his music to the Bitcoin Valueverse. And I think it does. Like, you can't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you. And I think it's outlook. I think it's the fact that, like I say, you can now save for a rainy day, and that gratification of spending immediately, buying a new car, all those kind of things you can kind of put to the back of your mind and think, actually, I don't need that. Do you know what I mean? I can now save for my children's future, knowing that I'm just a custodian of the Bitcoin that I've got. I'm just because I'm gonna it's gonna be handed to them. Do you know what I mean? Eventually. So I think it can have profound effects on everybody. The fact that it will change low time preference. It will change the food as well, because at the end of the day, if the money printer keeps funding and subsidizing all of these giant companies like it did during, lockdown with, shut gyms but keep McDonald's open. Do you know what I mean? I think people's mentality will change for the better, because they will be more caring. They'll be more willing to look after themselves. They will be more aware of, the bad pharmaceuticals and the danger of, these big corporations and the disgusting slop they're producing. Do you know what I mean? So I think those companies that are already trying to get themselves on away from a fiat standard, or at least exposing them to a Bitcoin standard, Bitcoin will mean like what handmade used to mean back in the day. Nice. Something that's handmade, there's quality, there's love gone into that thing. And I think someone accepting Bitcoin for their produce, like whether it be a farmer with their beef, whether it be the local florist, love is going to go into what they produce, because their passion becomes meaningful. And I've said this before, when your incentive and passion collide, amazing things happen. And I think it's a positive for the whole planet. And like I say, we're already here, orange pilled. We've seen it in our own lives. We've seen it in our own perspective. Longy's got a new lease of life after, banging his head against the Fiat music industry for 20 years. It's like I've just opened this little door, and, the pearly gates of heaven are kind of shining through this door. And Longy's like, what's this over here? This looks great. And within 12 months, he's seen the value that his music has brought to people in the Bitcoin universe. And I think you're energized again, and you want to get back in the studios, writing more stuff. So it's making him want to get more passionate about what he's doing. And I think if we can get it out to as many people as possible, I think everyone will take that into their lives going forwards.
That's an amazing insight, that Bitcoin is kind of incentivizing the artist to be an artist again, and not being distracted with all the other things. As you went to the Valueverse and the value for value thing, what have you learned so far in terms of if someone listens to this and someone is an artist and he isn't in that space, what can they do? What are some best practices? Where to start with all that? Do you have some tips for potential artists that are listening?
100%.
Just listen to this man.
Yeah, give me a shout. Give me a shout.
That simple, mate.
So I think for someone who, is pretty confident around a computer, I think wavlake.com is the first port of call. If you own all your own masters, if you've never been signed by a label, if you've got your own music, and we heard a great story the other day, didn't we, about a guy whose father was in a band in the 60s and they released loads of music in the 60s. He found his old album in the loft. He's basically got his dad's album. He's put that on Wav Lake or LM Beats, and now his dad's music from the 60s is now getting played again, and he's earning Bitcoin from his proof of work from the 1960s. Do you know what I mean? So I'd say for the beginner, for the newbie, that is completely independent and wants to do it all by themselves, Wav Lake provide a great service. You can go there. It's very simple. You sign up for an account. You can upload your MP3. You can create splits. So if you're in a band with 4 people, or I think they do up to 16 splits, if you can basically upload your music, you can put a value split in there, split between the drummer, the bassist, the singer, the keyboardist. You can split for every single member of the band. All you need to begin with is a wallet, a Lightning wallet. So, you can get a wallet of Satoshi, or you can get Fountain, download Fountain podcast. They've got a wallet there as well. I think that's where ours goes. That's where our splits go. But yeah, Wav Lake is the easy option, but there is more decent. So Wav Lake some people will argue they're a decentralized service, but essentially they're using the RSS index. They're using the podcast index in order to grab, they publish to the RSS protocol, basically your music. So they will host it, they will publish it, and then, you can listen to your music and other apps, because of what Bitcoin brings, interoperability. Other apps, even though you upload your track to Wav Lake, Fountain will be able to find your track, play it. LN Beats will be able to find your track, play it. CurioCaster, True Fans, all those other all those other podcast players will automatically be able to find your stuff once you upload it via Wav Lake.
Yeah, it may mean you have to do a little bit of work, a little bit more work, but then on the flip side of that, you still have to do all the work for the distribution over in Fiat land. So you are stretching yourself, and I get that, but that's the work also of an artist as well these days. You've got to be able to do everything.
Yeah, but if you're a bit more technical, and you can and you've got your own website and you've got your own servers, you can take your MP3s, you can upload it to your own server. There's sovereign feeds, musicsideproject.com. You can put all the details into that site and it will generate you an XML file, which you can then upload to your website. That would, on your behalf, will publish it to the podcast index or the RSS feed. And it's as simple as that. Within 2-3 minutes, you can have your tracks online and people listening to it the other side of the planet. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, they're my 2 things. Wav Lake, if you're a beginner. If you're a little bit more adventurous, lmbeats.com, not LMbeats, sorry, Sovereign Feeds, Music Side Project, via uploading it to your own website and servers. So I'll talk a little bit about commissions. So whereas Spotify pay something like 0.002 pence per 1,000 streams, or something like that.
Yeah.
Wav Lake, you'll get 90% and 10% go to Wav Lake for obviously all the hosting and all of that. If you was to upload via Music Side Project or LM Beats, Sovereign Feeds, you can get 99% of the split and 1% will go to those tools you've used. So it really puts the power back into the musician's hands when it comes to all of this stuff. No more having to pay distributors, no more having to pay, people to go and check this and that and the other. Those Spotify gatekeepers, you don't have to pay them anymore. You can go basic direct.
direct, peer-to-peer. That's how Satoshi envisioned it. I love it a lot. Really, really cool. Perfect. Then we have one question that I always ask my guest is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin? And maybe I add besides Bitcoin and music.
There is nothing for me.
No.
No, it's pure music.
Not in Fiat land. Careful what you wish for. Come on, you got so much wisdom in all those songs you've made. Do you know what I mean?
Be careful what you wish for is a good one. I like that.
Yeah, man. I think it's true. I think, it's literally just getting over it. It's hard to, because you don't want to push people, do you ever? No. You never want to push it like onto you. Aaron done it in such a cool way with me. So it was like, it was just, it was just kind of, it's been a nice ride in, if you know what I mean. I think we're about there.
Yeah, what can they learn from us in Fiat? Well, let's think. I mean, yeah, don't worry, be happy. The future is going to be bright. Just keep pushing yourself to be better every day. Study Bitcoin. It'll make huge changes. And like I say, don't get too orange pilled that you go 6 months without eating properly. Do you know what I mean? That's never going to be healthy. Like Longy says, don't try and push it down other people's necks.
I think you should look. I think you should maybe look at what you do daily, of what you're putting into your system in terms of what you actually really, what we're really gaining from the Fiat. What are we really gaining from the Fiat world in terms of growth? That's what I think. Because I think over here, it just seems that everyone I come into contact with, it's all about being fair, and it's all about how we both win. Instead of in the Fiat world, it's you win, I lose, you win. It's just a horrific system.
Yeah, just be vocal about it, I suppose, in your local network. Tell and show. I think, tell them that there's this amazing stuff going on, and show them something. I think the keys to orange pilling someone is they have to see the magic. So I did it with my daughters. I played Monopoly, but rather than using the Monopoly money, we all had Lightning wallets. So whenever we would have to pay rent, I would send them Lightning payments on Monopoly. So try and make it fun, and don't go. I mean, there's so many layers to Bitcoin. Don't. Because I've got a Bitcoin Essex Telegram group. We've got about 70 people. I've tried to build a network in my group of all of these self-employed people that are all willing to accept Bitcoin for their work. So I've got carpenters, plasterers on there, musicians, hairdressers like myself. Do what you can to try and earn Bitcoin. Turn your passion into something that you can utilize to sell to the real world, because that's the only way we can really master something, if we're really passionate about it. And I'm really passionate about Bitcoin. I'm really passionate about music. And, I want to try and get as many artists onto Bitcoin as possible.
Perfect. And for anybody listening, if you know an artist, just send them that podcast episode. I think that would be a great start. Really cool. Thank you so much. You're both to be on. We have an entertaining podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. For the question for the both of you, what is your goal with Bitcoin once Bitcoin succeeds in the capacity you think it will?
That's my goal.
Nice. Lovely.
Let's get to America, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, 100% for next year. Yeah, to see whether we can put it out of the bag. That'd be amazing. The Nashville, is it Nashville?
Nashville, Phoenix, Arizona, Texas.
Yeah. But they seem to be flying flags over there for that, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. A European tour, I think. Yeah, it's a shared goal, because I know with Longy, I know he'd want to take me with him, but we want, Bitcoin to enable us to go and, play at conferences. I mean, I don't know if there's an Austrian conference that you could put us in touch with, but our goal, I mean, we've already realised our goal, because it's like a self-improvement. We get better every day, what we're doing. But I think in terms of the kind of freedom or the monetary aspect, I think if Bitcoin went up a little bit more, we would then be able to finance, going to Europe, playing some gigs, going to America. I think that's our dream, isn't it? That's our dream. If Bitcoin goes how we think it's going to go, 2025, we'll see a European tour from Longy and hopefully us get into the States as well.
Amazing. Perfect. And thank you so much for being on the show. Before I let you go, where can people find you, ask you questions, and reach out to you?
100%. Right. Well, I'm on Twitter under BTC Essex. You can find me. That's where I hang out. I'm active. I'm also on Nostr too, but it's very hard to say. Yeah, my NPub is NPub. Longy's also on Twitter.
I'm literally just looking at it now.
He's at Longy 5 to 8.
Yeah.
Longy 5 to 8 on Twitter.
I'll change it.
I got a website, bitcoinessex.co.uk. There's a few blogs on there about our story of how I orange pilled Longy, how I got him onto the platform. But yeah, just mention us, just reach out in any of the comments under the tweets, and I'm happy to let you know how we did it. And like I say, we are actively going to be looking for Bitcoin conferences. If you want some kick-ass rock and roll, if you want to, breather in between the endless talks that happen on stage, how about we get some rock and roll on stage? And how about we get some of these conferences really rocking?
Really cool. Looking forward to seeing you. I'm a big conference guy. I like going on to conference. I discovered that this year and will be even more on conferences next year. I like it a lot. Really cool. Thank you so much for the both of you for being on the show. Also, thank you so much for everyone who's watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you.